Hello, good afternoon, which is, I think this is the first time I'm actually playing this game in the afternoon, so maybe this is a bad decision, but we'll find out. Um, yep. Sorry, I know I'm 20 minutes late. Or are you 20 minutes late? Maybe the stream is just on a 20-minute delay. You'll never know. No, I'm just late. But yeah. Today we're continuing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I'm very excited because it seems like things are about to get incredibly interesting. I'm pretty sure this next case is a case that has already occurred in canon. Um, I guess let me switch. Let me put this in the stream title: investigation. I thought it was investigation, but it was I wasn't sure. But yeah. The only problem is I know Natsume is involved with this case. Episode 2, The Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight than in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas. Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
Hello, Jayak. Okay. So, my understanding is this case apparently occurred based on the cutscene. This case occurred like immediately after the case with Natsume in the first game, Soseki-san. Um, yeah, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but they did say this case seems to hold some secrets that will lead into some of the bigger mysteries at play here. So I'm looking forward to it. Alright, here we go. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a fledgling lawyer, just starting out on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law. Having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I've successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which was now about to awaken from slumber. Thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I'd better go down to Mr. Sholmes's suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. The 30th of August, 7:28 a.m., Sholmes's suite. Okay. Ah, Runo. Good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious, as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I got a surprise this morning. Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. Wait. Elementary. With the keyword. This could just be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, I see. So that's it. The truth is as clear as day to me. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have, this very morning, met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button on your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course. Though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. Oh, it has. And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember. By you. Hurley pulled your button off. And Iris says, I'll get Iris's voice closer soon. Ah, yes. I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped. Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder, then, that in my vexation I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But, Hurley, Runo said it when he came in, didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire. The famous consulting detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. All right, then. Enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it gets cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too. My latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, as published in Ranced magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it? Really? That's right. And she had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh, yes. What fun. Yay. Okay. I don't think there's any reason to examine this stuff unless I feel like it. Miss Susato's letter. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning by international post. Oh, how lovely. Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And How is your judicial assistant faring? May I ask? She's very well, thank you. Uh, in fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Uh, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful?
It is time for inspection. Prepare yourself.
Hi, hi Arshian. Thank you for the raid. I hope you're doing well. Hello, welcome. Yeah, thank you very much for the raid. Oh, this game is very good. We're just starting a new case though, so there's not too much crazy stuff happening yet, but we'll get there. Yeah, that's a good raid message. Alright, now I have to go back to voicing the Inspector Herlock Sholmes. Well, private detective? that would be his he's a PI. That's his job title. Cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume... no. I don't recall that name. Of course you do. We helped the man twice. You know, in those 2 cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago. Ah, the mustached, twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. Wait, you mentioned his mustache twice. He didn't have 2 mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those 2 cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although, I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. A very deep impression they made on you. Clearly. Startling news. So, what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes, it's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Miss Susato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago. For what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her. Apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Miss Susato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case. Yes. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript, ready for publication, too. But then, Hurley here was all funny about it. Remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said. Very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Miss Susato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan. Miss Susato's repatriation. It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was. Due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right. Telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No. It just said he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So, Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home. Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Miss Susato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? Well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is quite surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. he scuttled off rather quickly there. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By, of all people, Mr. Sholmes. Aha! I've found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case? That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Runo? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit. Excuse me. Sorry. And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again, together. Everything from what happened to our investigation and that fierce battle in the court that followed. Reliving every detail. I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world. Because of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. Wait, he was disbarred? Wait, Ryunosuke. Wait, did you get disbarred for that case? For that last case? What the? It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attacker, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Soseki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Sholmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Soseki-san in court. And after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation. was the man's reaction after the trial, but his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. We received a telegram from Mr. Sholmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So, Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. Wait, what is that? what kind of word? Oh, it's a two-wheeled horse-drawn carriage accommodating two, with the driver sat behind. Okay, that's what it is. And now we're really in the flashback. 21st of February, 5:30 a.m. St. Bartholomew's Hospital, Recovery Ward. What's up with that golden little statue at... What's up with that golden statue over there? Ah, there you are, at last. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I think not. Oh. You're late. What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Sholmes, and it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right, and it's 5:30 now. I think we made good time, very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And, feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now. So, the victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from over here. Okay, so that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with the knife in her back. Her name is... yes, here we are. Miss Green. Well, okay, what is this? This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really, it's not exactly what you would call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No. I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. There's a rat over there. I feel like the rat should not be in the hospital ward. Look, there's a photograph in the frame here. Oh, yes. It's a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? My, Mr. Naruhodo, I didn't know you had a sense for the matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Okay, what's up with this mouse? Mouse, Mr. Naruhodo. An enormous mouse. Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump. I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you were thinking. All sorts of medicines in this cabinet, look. I'm not sure if it's safe leaving them in reach of everyone like this. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two. Well, at least there seems to be a little lock to secure the doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worry that you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Miss Susato. That bag is almost as tall as she is. Okay, well, let's just talk to her. Good morning. Hello, I'm, Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Okay, wait, I gotta decide on her voice. I'm thinking. Wait, one moment. One moment. Okay. I think something like that I'll try for. Oh no! Was it your knife? Are you the man who... No. I am a lawyer. And I'm Susato Mikotopa. Pleased to meet you. Oh no. Was it your knife then? Are you the one? No. I assure you, I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come and give you our very best wishes. Best wishes, for me. Thank you. I'm Olive Green. I'm an artist. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. Excuse me. Okay. To suddenly be struck in the back by a blade as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in hospital, I mean. Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly. By none other than I, Herlock Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work in that courtroom that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming round seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh, no. We're all so relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really, we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. About yourself. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh, no. I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndyke Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts. Great Britain is such a wonderful country. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts? Oh, no, actually, I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road. I see. How very interesting. Oh no, is it? Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here. And Thorndyke Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Center. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not. But Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of town, by comparison, dwelt in by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She's suddenly climbed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young maiden's private affairs. I can't do Sholmes's laugh. Sorry. Oh dear. Do forgive me. If you don't mind, I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh, yes, of course. We won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narrowfodder here? Mr. Narrowfodder? Narrow fodder now. Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo the lawyer, that's me. But... Ah, Mr. Narrowfodder. Good. This is for you. It's a message from a Mr. Saucy Nutsmeg. That's Sorry. Sorry. That's not what I was expecting him to say. Mr. Natsume sent a message to me. But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? What are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something... is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? He says. Have you not seen this note? No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls, a case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is... We've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That will be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? All hail a fiacre at once. What is that? Is that a different type of carriage? Fiacre. Okay, a fiacre is a small four-wheeled horse-drawn carriage for hire. The word comes from the French Hotel Saint-Fiacre, which means I'm pronouncing it wrong because it's French. So, I'm sorry. It's a French coach for hire. that I guess has at least space for 4 people. Most interesting. It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court, and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address. He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time. But we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. The 21st of February, 7:18 a.m. Mr. Natsume's lodgings, ground floor. What on earth? Oh my. The gentleman is deceased. Without question, he's dead. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Mr. Natsume? Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court yesterday. I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. Woeful worm without wiggle. Okay, one moment. His lines make me need to catch my breath. Okay. Alright. I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Not the horrible Sherlock Sholmes. Shove off. Show yourself the door. I never invited you. Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. Excuse me. I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Grrr. Oh gosh, it's Gregson. That's not his voice. Okay. One second. Here they are. Already. The busybodies. Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. Huh. I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector.
This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything.
Or good morning to you too, Sunshine. This... Alright, time to look at literally everything in this room that we can.
Oi, I said hands off. You're gonna mess up my crime scene.
Oh, no, I just wanted to look, that's all.
No chance. I know your kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it.
Ugh, someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Ha 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 ha. Ah, ha 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 ha. I'll never get it right. Alright. It sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. Gregson, you gotta let me investigate. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he?
Mr. William Shamspear. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss, as it happens, or just dead.
Mr. Shamspear. So he's not Shakespeare, he's Shamspear, the actor. That's a good name.
It was the landlord, old Mr. Garrett, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fella didn't rise at his usual hours, so Garrett got worried and kicked the door down.
But doesn't Mr. Garrideb have a bad leg?
Ah, yeah. You're right there. It was actually that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking.
But really? Soseki-san?
The victim was pretty hard up, it seems. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, and no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in this house. Miserable life, and a miserable end to it.
So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene?
Well, I'm not saying because
sorry, I'm, okay. Take two.
well, I'm not saying it's because the fella looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious. But I thought it would be prudent to take a statement from the cohabitator.
You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh, dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again. It certainly seems that way. He does just come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Poor man. How unfortunate.
Anyway, I can't say much until coroner gets here. But I don't think the fella's been a goner for that long. The body's still warm.
Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. Are you not gonna let me look around, Inspector? Dang it, I guess we'll have to look later. Maybe once we... There's a bad air in here. I guess I should talk to Natsume. What a terrible thing to have happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences. So, the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just 1 story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So, did you know the victim? Were you friends? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Sorry. Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger. But did he ever invite me to his room? Never. On my honor, I swear it. What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. Through that inspector over there. What are you doing now, Sholmes? He always shows up where you least expect him. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Huh. Ha. You only need to observe to know it. My dear fellow, investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery? Patience, my dear madam, patience. We've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. My goodness. But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes? Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could, indeed, see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first, that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No, don't mind me. Forget I was here. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! All right, Mr. Natsume. Why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Sholmes' deductions? No. Please. Pretend I'm not here. Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant. Impossible to ignore. Okay, one second. I need to drink some more of my water. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail.
But of course. Let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts.
We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt, this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time?
So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes's logic and reasoning spectacular, Act 1.
The Great Deduction. The game is afoot. Topic 1. Cause of death. Conclusion.
Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison.
Excuse me.
Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful, indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The fork reveals the answer. It appears. Sorry.
Sholmes is saying he ate the soap and got poisoned. Why would he eat the soap with a fork? That's just inefficient. If you really wanted to eat the soap, you'd just pick it up and take a bite. Come on.
It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against hunger was in vain, for in the end he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But
Sorry, I think this is really funny.
But London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison.
Is that even soap?
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate.
The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. Yep, definitely soap foam around his mouth. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though, personally, I have a greater... Why is he saying these things? How could he do this? Though, I don't know if I can read this line straight. Though, personally, I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. That's good enough. Why is he gonna eat the candle wax? Poisoning from soap ingestion. Suicide or murder? The cause of death is identified. We proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the soul key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his tragic end in solitude. My brain mixed up the words there. More water. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. How can you say that? See, with this just flat serious. At least his soul was cleansed by the soap that poisoned him. No possible perpetrator was present. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. I need to like turn down the output volume on OBS a little bit or something. Let me on my end. Give me 1 second to fix this. Volume just a little bit, cause it's a little bit loud. Okay, that should be good. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? Soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. But it is a curious thing. But to one so destitute, soap can suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary. In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation was that it would cleanse my gut. And did it? As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilt the contents of my stomach, yes, I believe it did. Instantly became sick afterward. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it, even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh, what's that? If he died to poison, he probably didn't do that to himself. It's Mr. Natsume. I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. Nonsense. Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, The great detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. Yeah, he has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Okay, I'm gonna go refill my water before we do this really quick. So I will be back in 1 minute. Sorry. Be right back. Okay, I have more water now. So now we can get into correcting Sholmes. Because he needs to be corrected again. Okay, I'll switch it back over to the game. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the keywords in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions. And discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If sorry, since I came back to South sit down. I'm like not quite in the same position relative to the mic, and I'm trying to figure out where I need to actually be again. I think it's fine regardless, but it's probably fine. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Herlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Here, I'll push the ad back until after this for you. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful, indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The fork reveals the answer. Well, you can't deny that a fork implies the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork rather than attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half the bar of soap is left on the plate. But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap. Wait, the other piece of soap is on the floor. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamsphere must really have loved the stuff. Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruto. Look closely at this soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the other half of bar on the table? Oh, what the? How can that be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. Well, then it would be the teacup. That would be the only other relevant thing, right? Do you think he was drinking tea with his soap? The cup's empty. So there's no way of knowing. Ah, how about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water, and he was dissolving the soap in it so he could gulp as much down as possible. Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap lover that he's been made out to be. What could it... I mean, I think it would be the teacup. Because the other piece of soap shows that he didn't eat any. Did the victim really eat soap? Well, we'll present the other piece of soap because that proves he didn't actually eat any of it. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really. For no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of this plate. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then. Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it. If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in the room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? The victim's life was claimed with poison that tainted... I think it has to be the teacup. That's the only other logical explanation I can think of. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. Poison in the tea. Solved. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's Last Supper. Did the man dine and die alone? The single teacup suggests an answer. Ah, the Western vessel for infused hot drinks. Again. It's already been featured heavily in our deductions so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamspeare was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that. But what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues. Wait, he's holding another teacup?
Take that!
Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along. In other words, this is a strong indication that the victim's Last Supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. What are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. You mean to say, you know exactly who was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Not quite that. I'm not sure I like where this deduction's going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth. Mr. Naruhodo? No, I suppose not. I guess it's time to look around again. The only other things of note here are this empty bottle. It's empty. Empty of liquid, but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Bother. Susato-san's quip in response was cleverer than my original riddle. At first glance, it seems like that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read... The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gabrielle. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Saseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them. That's right. And now those 3 titles are here in the room of the victim. Yet Mr. Natsume claims to have never been in here before. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. Pile of familiar books.
Take that!
Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books.
Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth.
Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a secondhand bookshop.
That's just a coincidence. In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room. Will you not? This very moment. No, never. Non-negotiable.
If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. Excuse me. In other words, you could have only brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. All of his poses. It's so good. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey, in short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. Soseki Natsume at the scene. Deduction complete. Elementary. Not again. Not again. Not again. Not again.
Well then, Mr. Natsume, it would appear you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard again.
But wait. Hold your horses.
Yes?
Door, key, locked, entry, exit, entirely impossible. He's so flustered he's being even stranger than normal.
What? You think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy.
What?
You live in the same building after all. You'd have plenty of time of opportunity, I'm sure.
But... Misery me.
Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later.
The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Herlock Sholmes. He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he?
Come on now. No dilly-dallying. Outside. There's a carriage waiting. locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but you have to help me. Please, please, I'm innocent.
Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it.
And one more thing.
Oh, yes?
My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me.
Wagahai. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. Saseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in a murder case. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective.
My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you.
That is technically true. The fact that we corrected Shelm's placed Natsume at the crime scene and made him the prime suspect. Well, at least that means that Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course. What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garrideb, who discovered Mr. Shamsphere. Mr. John Garrideb, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor, as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. Well, now we get to actually look at stuff. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. This is a gas meter, I think. Okay, it's the parking meter for gas. I see. Yes, well now that you pointed out, I can see that there's a slot here that looks just like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here... That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold. Yes. Or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. This is a gas wall light, right? Isn't it? It must be connected to the gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. Well, let's examine the body. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British way. I'll just reread it. Now, one moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened? Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps, when you look around the room. There's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope it was in. In fact, is there? Ah, she's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual, that's all. I agree. We'd better take this just in case. We grabbed it. Ah, one of the teacups that Mr. Shamsphere and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's a bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspeare's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Sasaki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Yes! We're tampering with the crime scene. Let's go! What's up with this floorboard? This very conspicuous floorboard. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper. That's all. Prosecutor Lord Von Zieks. Yes. He's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste, and that he should donate the sum to the needy. You can suggest that next time we meet. Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be much more suited to a feudal lord. A daimyo or such like. With a chanmage top knot. Every Japanese man wishes he had a chanmage. Oh, you'd look so wonderful with one. And you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chanmage and a sword? As you've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What a strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property. It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh, what is it, Miss Susato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Wait, what? Wait, they are? Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsphere who did it, I wonder, being the lodger renting this room? Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What? Outside? Huh? It's so cold outside. You can feel it through the gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are more bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming, like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah. Do you see, in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose? Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? A cheap bar of soap that was discovered just outside Mr. Champspeare's window. It's one of 2 that were found there. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Oh, there, okay. Inspector Gregson, back so soon.
After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard.
Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low. Being back in a cell again so soon. I'm sure... What? What? But... What? Okay. Um... 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 Uh... The, the dead man. Uh... Um... I'm sorry. I... Uh... Uh... My brain isn't working. Sent help. Okay. Um... A deep breath. What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Um... Um... Uh... Um... えっと、あの、何これ? Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part?
It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Indeed. Oh, happy day. Walking Dead!
Duh.
D- d-
The fella isn't dead at all.
What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think... Yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was. But the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. 21st of February, Briar Road. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life? I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison as we deduced. But that was it an accident? Attempted suicide? Or perhaps attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so? Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruto? Excuse me. Could we have a word?
Ah.
What? He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. What's that green thing? With the exception of the top floor where Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay less tax, the poorer members of society filled in many of their windows. But the tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could all be opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it appears that the residents of this district can't afford to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for the people like Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in a windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. I don't think there's really anything of note out here besides the guy. Well, I guess we're gonna go talk to Garadab. Yes, we'll go up here. 21st of February. The Garadab's room. Here we are again. The eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garadab's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget.
Ah, you chaps.
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday.
It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garadab as anyone, really.
Came straight back here after all that business at the Old Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garadab.
Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap on the ground floor room.
Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't it? Weren't they? It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened.
That hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail.
I might be getting a little bit too close to Gregson.
But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer.
And that's why when you broke into his room by kicking down the door?
Well, I called upon that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course.
Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruto. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning.
You know, better to be safe than sorry and all that.
Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now of all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of that door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear, I believe. Is that right?
Yes. William Shamspear. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now.
And how would you describe him?
In a word, destitute.
Destitute?
Well, let's face that. Let's face it. The only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like this is either broke or has a bally screw loose.
So hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. She read my thoughts again.
He was doing research as well.
Research into what?
Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know? Romeo and Hamlet and all that.
Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Excuse me. Of course. Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspear would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning?
Well now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time.
Mr. Garrett noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose.
Couldn't summon the energy for anything much else, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamspear got back. And the chap was up till past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there.
Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Miss Susato? was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Gerdab, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly?
Not a big fan of stairs. Not with this blasted leg.
Then, how is it that you seem to know the precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor? I mean,
Uh, uh,
that's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it?
I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? And I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I?
Then, how did you know, Mr. Gerdab?
It was the gas woman. The gas tells me everything.
The gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything?
Well, you're probably aware the gas is supplied to the building by pipes.
Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every single room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too.
Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen?
Well, obviously the room would get brighter, eh?
Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment.
What? They'd dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of the gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable.
Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they glow brighter than the rest of the house.
Ah, right. I see. So by watching the flickering lamps of the lamps in the one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere.
You got it.
Oh, of course. Because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever.
In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Gardev. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh well, nothing to it, really.
And I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Gardev is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to head to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. Well, off to prison. '21st of February, local prison, cell 9. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now?
Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
Oh, yes?
What is he? Tell me. Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me?
Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume. Not a ghost.
But, his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you.
Well, that sort of hurts. Well, credit where credit is due. Mr. Naruhodo, you were heavily involved in the deduction too. Yes. Moving on. We have some wonderful news.
Oh.
The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume?
It's terrible.
Oh.
I'm stuck in this cell, suffering for some silly, wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess. You're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you are going to come back to life, why bother dying? wickedly wishy-washy William.
Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsphere was never actually dead in the first place.
Yes. That might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think that it was our last.
Oh,
Oops.
Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsphere, didn't you?
I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present.
Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story.
Why am I cursed like this?
Okay, I... I have to refill my water again before we get into Natsume's testimony. Because his voice is yup. Yup. Yup, Natsume. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna go refill my water again and then we'll get into his testimony, and then I'm expecting this to be about the end of the first part of this case. I think. So, yeah. I'll be back in a minute, sorry. Okay, I'm back, sorry. I'm a little slow. I had to grab a little bit of sugar. Just something sweet. I had a couple cola flavored Oreos. Oreos, that one. Chocolate cookie, but also cola flavor for some reason. I can't decide if I actually like them or not. It's kind of just a strange thing. But yeah. Let's get into Natsume's side of the story. And this will probably be the last thing we're doing for this part, if I had to guess. But who knows, maybe we'll be here for another hour. Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume?
There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday.
The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that it was only yesterday.
After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And then, that evening at past 9, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspear.
So you did go to the victim's room then? But at 9:30, and he was guaranteed at least awake till 1 a.m. As we feared.
I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time.
Then what made you decide to go?
I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell.
That ties in with what Mr. Garrett said, that the victim went out and came back after 8.
We met again later that evening, at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift.
So it was you who brought the tea that had been clearly drunk at the scene then? And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate.
I'm sure.
Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare.
And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea.
No, never. Not at all. Team Juliet won. That was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant, fellow was fighting fit. I swear it categorically.
Cursed existence. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence.
I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me.
It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture.
There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. And then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road.
But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable.
Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money it spoke to me.
The rent.
Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed.
Cursed? Cursed how?
The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there.
Oh no.
He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead, and no one could explain why.
Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that.
I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning.
Brave or blinkered?
But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was.
Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened?
At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me.
Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you?
No, 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 no. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare since I was given the keys to that place.
A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean?
All of the souls who've died in that room. I lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me.
That really is horrible.
And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night, too. The very same night that Mr. Shamspear was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room.
You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible.
Yes, you're right. I know it, and that's why. I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home.
I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Whew. Susato-san knows how to make the man listen.
Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well.
You mean Mr. Garridab?
Yes. He knows that if people keep dying in there, he'll never be able to rent it out again.
Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms.
What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps?
Oh dear. No, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything.
Oh. Now you're talking about me behind my back as well.
What's important is that Mr. Shamspear isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come round and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released.
Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right.
Excuse me. Oh, it's Gregson. Inspector Gregson.
I couldn't help overhearing what you just said, and on that note, I have some good news and some bad news.
Oh,
Which do you want first?
always, every time. The bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle.
Right. Well, in that case, the good news it is. Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way.
Then why did you ask me my preference?
As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shramsphere, was just unconscious. He's come round now.
Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory.
He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already.
Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? The statement just implicates Soseki, though, doesn't it?
Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell.
Sorry. No. That's not on the cards.
What?
Why ever not, Inspector?
Mr. Shramsphere has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened that night.
Implicated someone. Oh, dear.
You don't mean...
I'm sorry to say, I do. Yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. By sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. That wicked caitiff. Soseki Natsume.
No.
So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparation.
No.
And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was just haunted, or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. To be continued. Ooh. I swear, the parts of this game have been trending a little longer. But I guess because that was the whole investigation. But yeah, I'm gonna be calling the stream here for today. Cause, yep. Otherwise, I'll be here way too long. Cause if I keep going now, we would just finish the whole case, and I don't think my voice could take that. So yeah. Thanks everyone for hanging around and watching. I hope you're enjoying this game as much as I am. And thanks again to Archeon for the raid. I really appreciate it. And let's see. Next time I'll be live will most likely, I can guarantee Wednesday. If I'm live sometime before that, it'll be random. But we'll see. So yeah, I hope everyone has a good rest of your day or evening or whatever. And I will see you next time I'm live. Bye bye.